Hello, Bible readers. There's two ways to read Psalm 15, and that doesn't mean they have to be opposite of each other. You don't have to pick one or the other, but it was likely used in two ways. One, as an entrance liturgy. Turns out worship, gathered community worship, is at the heart of how the righteous maintain their righteousness in ancient Israel, and one could argue even still, which I think, and I know I'm a pastor of a church that worships multiple times a week, but there is something to regular attendance at public worship. It's where we remember the stories together, it's where we pray prayers together that are meant to support each other and challenge each other. Afflict the comfortable and comfort the afflicted is what I was always taught. Worship is work, for sure. It's not simply a gift to be received. It requires your time you may well want to use in a very different way. And by giving time to worship, it's a way of admitting, I am not God. A lot is going on in worship. And for Jews a couple thousand years ago, they thought so highly of worship and what God was up to in that time together that they emphasized the importance of preparing for worship. Leviticus 10 lays out clear expectations of how to prepare. So that's how Psalm 15 starts. O Lord, who may abide in your tent? Who may dwell on your holy hill? Who gets to enter the temple? God. That's basically what they're asking. My Brueggemann and Bellinger commentary would have us imagine a group of worshipers making their way to the entrance of the temple in ancient Jerusalem and near the door asking the questions in verse 1. And then a priest may have responded with the rest of the psalm. Behind this idea that Psalm 15 is a liturgy of preparation is the belief that God is both holy and accessible. So what may feel at times like Dorothy the Lion, Tin Man, and Scarecrow approaching the great and powerful Oz, what's different about approaching God versus approaching Oz is only deemed to be holy, like other. That's one of the definitions for holy. But our God is both, understood to be both holy and accessible. There's no pyrotechnic show, no smoke billowing up from some frightening hologram in the temple. Israel understood that to enter the holy place was risky, yes, but also life-giving. So it's worth all their effort to prepare their heart, mind, and soul, but not just mentally or spiritually. You'd prepare for worship with your behaviors, with the ethics that guide your life, with the ways you live. That's why the rest of the psalm, the answer to the questions in verse 1, are not like liturgical in nature, what the priest would say, but they're also instructive. A teacher could use these verses to teach a confirmation style class to kids. In fact, interestingly, there are exactly 10 requirements in Psalm 15. 5 are positive, like do this, walk blamelessly, do right, speak truth, despise the wicked, swear to do good. And 5 are negative, that is, do nots. Do not lie, do not do evil, do not reproach neighbors, no usury, no bribery. As much as many Lutherans walk around with the meanings of the 10 Commandments in their heads, you shall have no other gods. What does this mean? We are to fear and love God above all things. Israelites would have had Psalm 15 in their hearts with the 10 things needed in order to be fully prepared to enter the temple of God. Like that's what Psalm 15 is about. So Psalm 15 is able to do two things at once. It is a liturgical piece that could be used as worshipers come into the temple, and it could be used as an educational tool. A couple details on the psalm itself. Verses 2 and 3 answer the question, who gets to enter your tent, with broad lifestyle kind of responses. But verses 3 to 5 get more specific. Speech is again lifted up as super important, and this theme continues to strike me in a time of the world when anybody can say anything about anyone, can post almost anything about anyone with almost no accountability. I mean, social media and the internet in general allow for speech to run rampant. Psalm 15 continues to find ways to be relevant in our lives, even in 2024, whenever you're watching this. Last thing, Psalm 15 ends with, "Those who do these things shall never be moved." This might be an addition to the very, very original text. It's an addition that's been around for a long time, but a lot of scholars are like, it's not necessary. Kind of a bow that's put on, but whatever. What it really gets at is the metaphor Israel had in mind, that the wicked shall be moved, even the faithful can be shaken. But there was this pre-exile understanding. Remember, later on in Israel's history, the leaders of Israel are, once Israel is defeated by an outside power, leaders are taken to Babylon, and the temple is destroyed. But before that, this psalm likely was written before that, because there was this understanding that God and the sanctuary of God, that's what's stable. Everything else in this life might swirl in chaos to some degree, but God and God's sanctuary do not. So this is part of why the destruction of the temple, when that exile I spoke of just a second ago, when that happens to God's people, it is so discombobulating. It is so troubling, way beyond troubling, actually. It really shakes the faith of Israel. So they have to reimagine what is the real stability? What is the foundation of our faith? Is it not this spot on God's holy hill? But that's for another time. I am one with my God. My God is with us, all of us, at all times and in all places.